Okay. Good morning, everybody. It is July 8th, 10:04 a.m. And we're gonna start bargaining Lake County Schools and LCEA. And I wanted to take this opportunity and start with congratulations to all of you that are instructional and admin. We are an A district. We're gonna celebrate that. Super happy. I appreciate all the hard work that everybody does, and I know it takes a lot to get to where we've come from to where we are today. So it's really appreciated for the efforts of everybody. So with that said, a few things that I'm gonna start. I think the agenda already went through around. And before I start with Article 4, which is the only one that I'm bringing back forward today, I'm still working on Articles 8 and 9. And that I'm checking on language. And I wanted to know, Elizabeth, when we work out the files, I know previous bargaining sessions when Chad used to do it with Kathy, sometimes they used to pull our code changes on the same file.
Yes.
So I haven't done that because I didn't have your file, so I started making my own and I went through all your changes and I did what I did on the one that I'm presenting today.
Okay.
But moving forward, I needed to know how you want me to, do you want me to still do it this way, or do you want to go to that other way?
So I think from like our training and our side,
Okay.
doing it where we share the documents, and I apologize, with the holiday, and everything going on, I completely forgot to send it, but you have it now. But I would say moving forward, yeah, if we can just share documents,
Okay.
so that way, I think for all of us to understand where folks are coming from in terms of the proposals and what it changes between each proposal or counter, it's helpful to have that same document and make those changes on this document. And record like, here was the initial proposal, here was the counter, the date.
Okay, so I only have a copy of the counter proposal. I didn't bring a copy for everybody on the original proposal from you.
Right.
And I didn't have your changes on one document because I wanted to discuss this with you.
Right,
Now, moving forward with every other article, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna share the article immediately
okay,
with you. I'll start breaking the file, the master file that I have, and we'll start dating it accordingly.
that's all.
Okay, so I just wanted to clean that up to make sure, because
Yeah.
I started noticing previews and I'm like, okay, I need to get a better system with Elizabeth when it
Yeah.
comes to the kind of proposal. So I'm going to go ahead and pass Article 4. And then I'll go through the changes. You guys have it in your binder.
So, we know really quick before you start, just a logistical piece, since we were talking about logistics.
Mhm.
At the top, kind of like in your heading area,
Mhm.
what we'll do is we write like LCA initial proposal and the date. So then this would say like
We were
LCS
agreed.
counter.
I just, when I passed the copies, and I remember I forgot to, when I printed the Article 4, I forgot to put that on the
Yeah.
top. So we'll do it on the top header. And I noticed that's part of the things that I noticed, and it's color coded too, so. We'll figure out the coloring as we go.
Okay.
But for now, yes, I should have put at the top the date. So this will be counter. So Article 4, I'm gonna go by sections, just like we did last time, so. Article 4, obviously the title, you had crossed out teacher and put employee, so I basically changed it to instructional employee. Okay? Use of facilities, basically the same thing, you have the instructional employee, you had employee only. Section 2, you had added via in person or email, we were fine with that, so we just left it at that. Section 3. And you had requested to change to employees in the first sentence and through the postal service, and we declined that change. And we don't have an issue with the mailboxes. If you mail items to the employees, we will go ahead and put them in their mailbox. And then you had work sites for local schools. We accepted that, and then employees, we changed to instructional employees. And then where it says teachers, I missed one, which I gotta get back to. Where it says US mail, which is addressed to bargaining unit members and received at work site, will be placed in instructional employees mailboxes by office staff and in timely manner. So I have to make that change there, okay? I missed it. Instructional employee mailboxes by office staff in a timely manner. I would say going through line item by line item is time consuming.
Yes.
Section 4, email. You had requested to cross out from the second line where it says for contract all the way down to information, and then cross out the last sentence, which was of the superintendent or designee. We do not accept that. Our stance with the district has been the same. We don't have an issue using email for purposes of contract ratification, meeting information, but by no means it's going to be used for any other type of communication other than what was stipulated in the contract here. We have it written. Similar to the emails that you have started sending on information on meetings to your members, that is okay. The same rationale applies for section 5 with the courier system. We added the and work sites as you had brought forward, but we do not accept the cross out for contract ratification. We still have the same rationale that we have for email. It's the same rationale we have for the courier system. So we do not accept those changes. Section 6. Section 6, if you notice, I crossed out the whole thing because it had 3 pronouns in it, and I wanted to rewrite the sentence in that section without the pronoun usage and including the word instructional employee. So instead of rewording, crossing, and bold-facing within that particular paragraph or sentence, I decided to write it at the bottom. But did not accept the change of conduct. Because technically, every instructional employee, or actually every employee in the district, must abide by certain standards within the profession. So we kept that language, but we wrote the section without the pronouns of his. Section 7, and please stop me if you have questions or if you have clarifications. Section 7, along with the topic of, personal files are the legal responsibilities of the board. Pretty much it's a management thing that we do here at the district or every employer. So I'm gonna go through each section. All documents maintained by instead of employee, but concerning an instructional employee, and then instructional employees. And I did not accept, or we did not accept that no such materials may be placed in the personal file unless they have been reduced in writing within 45 days. Nothing gets placed in the personal file unless it's something that's written on an official documentation. It's part of the employee's file. But I'm not gonna limit this to days. We don't accept that. So if it's something that warrants to be in the personal file, it will be in the personal file. And 3, the no derogatory, we changed where it says employees' conduct, we changed it to instructional employees' conduct. And then where it says you added language, because you were moving language from 7C over to number 3 here. We felt like it's not needed to be moved. We can keep it where it is, and I'll get to that section in a minute. And no anonymous letter or anonymous material should be placed. That's already said in the other section, so therefore that, I didn't accept the change for number 3 here. Number 4, there was only one change, which was the word instructional added in front of employee in the middle of the paragraph where it says applicable system, which is uniquely applicable to that instructional employee. Everything else stays the same on number 4. Letter B. You had, I crossed out the first sentence because we were rewriting the sentence because of the pronoun his. To each instructional employee or designated representative shall have the right upon written request to review the contents of the corresponding district or school personnel file. Then change teacher to instructional employee, and then school/department change to worksite records, school file in order to maintain, and then where it says teachers, I put instructional employees file is inspected. C, you have requested an employee may request a free digital copy or purchase a paper copy of any document in their personnel file, and then cross out everything else. We kept it at, we crossed out the first line because of pronoun. An instructional employee may request a copy of any document contained in the applicable personnel file, excluding materials classified as privileged and or confidential as outlined in chapter 119. Florida statute upon making appropriate arrangements with human resources. Every employee, I'm gonna add a little sidebar here. Every employee that requests a personal file, we've always provided a personal file electronically to them. They typically print it themselves. We don't charge them, but you had said a free request, that's already, we already provide that for them. So the part that of the fees for copies of public records are prescribed by Florida state statute. So I cannot just offer, there's a statute that dictates how much I charge. The only portion that we charge an employee is when it becomes something that is way too specific and detailed that they want specific things searched, and that involves typically IT. And the decision you wanted to cross off, or the LCA proposed crossing off the rest of that section, we kept it in there because that's what we were moving from. You have to put it in section. What was it? Section 3 or something to that. So therefore we left it there. You have moved it to section 7, 8, 2, and 3. So we just kept it there. Section 8. Section 8, that's really not a change. Section 8, I wanted to see there was a there and teaching words that you have crossed. And because of the pronouns, I rewrote the sentence. I'm not sure if I wanted you to review it and see your thoughts on it. It doesn't change the meaning at all. It's just rewriting it differently. But it's still the same content and context of the section. There are no changes to be. Section 9, class count. You had an organization added and caseloads. We do not accept the and caseloads. And I did talk to, for instance, for ESC department, there is nothing recorded in the system for caseloads. That is something that every site does differently or add and take away based on need. We don't record that. And in some cases, if one that I could think of, speech language might consider their caseload and they're still in their roster, so it's part of the roster. So they use that word caseload interchangeably from site to site. We don't have a system in place that documents caseload. Here does not document it. There is no set record of an operating procedure or what constitutes a caseload. And every school determines their own caseload differently for support facilitators. So we do not accept that change. And then I cross out, you had requested to cross out the cost will be the normal charge as paid by other persons or groups. There will be no charge for digital property because fees for copies of public records are prescribed by Florida state statutes. Typically, if somebody requests something that we have in a system that we can pull easily within 15 minutes, it's free. It's just, we follow state statute when it comes to that. Section 10, there was no changes in process there. Section 11, respect and dignity in the workplace, and we choose to decline putting critical counseling. That sentence, all employees will be treated with respect and dignity in the workplace in accordance with school board policies is sufficient. And what I ask here is that if something, if we're violating that in any way, shape, or form, we need to be informed so that we can take care of that. Because technically, with that sentence, what you are requesting to write should not be happening. Section 12. There is no changes there. And then we do not accept adding section 13, 14 to the article. Now, as far as I know, the association has always had the right to go visit work sites. The only time that it's not permitted per se is when the campus is closed because of a drill or testing. And principals, just to make sure, like I have not, like anytime the association thought that they would like to come to the school building, making arrangements with them. Correct? I mean, it hasn't been something that we've denied. So that's why that piece is, it's not the piece of the section 14 worksite representation. And the association representative must be given an opportunity at the conclusion of each faculty meeting prior to dismissal to present a maximum of 10 minutes. Well, those 10 minutes are LCS contract time. We don't have an issue if you want to meet after the contract time, after the meeting is over for you to meet with them, but not during contract time.
Okay, are you done? I'm sorry.
And the only last piece that I was gonna say is towards the bottom. You had a last sentence that the principal directors must meet with association representatives to collaborate and discuss topics of interest at a mutually agreeable time, at least once a month. And I know that's in another Article 11 that we haven't discussed as part of the joint leadership committee once a quarter. But here you're requesting once a month. And so they can request a meeting. There's no need to have that in that is already facilitated as part of the joint leadership committee. So that's the other piece that I had on that. You can schedule a meeting with the principal at any time. And that is all I have for Article 4.
I have a few questions on this.
Okay.
And then, obviously we'll get with our team in
That's
conference. We have a lot of time today, so we can try to give you some responses back to some of the stuff today. But I'll just kind of work my way backwards since we're already on the back.
Okay.
For the section 14 that we added for worksite representation and requesting meetings, with the principal to collaborate, and discuss topics. You stated that there's no need to add this language because of joint leadership, but we had addressed at the last bargaining session that joint leadership is a meeting with multiple parties. And, often it's similar to like your guiding coalition where you have department heads and different folks from across the bargaining unit and across the school work site. We had said that the value of having these type of conversations was to discuss anything that might be more a one-on-one conversation or more of a personal conversation. So going forward, if we don't accept this language, how do you recommend we handle those situations when it's not appropriate to discuss at a joint leadership?
Yeah, I guess some clarification.
Yeah.
Just from my understanding, when we do meet in joint leadership, I don't see why the one-on-one conversations also could be a part of the joint leadership, because we do talk about if there's something wrong on our campus or concerns, that's brought to the attention of joint leadership, so we can work together as a team through that. So I don't really understand how to differentiate the two, when I feel like we can still problem solve working through the same with joint leadership. I don't know if it's necessarily
Well, should I
need to have more meetings for that.
When, I mean,
And
I
it's a
guess,
small group, so it's
Right.
basically myself, the union rep. And a few other teachers that are on the team, and then my admin team. It's not really consistent with our guiding coalition, those are two separate, teams that we have on our campus, so.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah, they're totally different, so when we do meet, the agenda is set, and the agenda is made by the joint leadership, team and my union rep, and they're able to bring any concerns that they want to the table, and it's a safe place to have those conversations.
So I appreciate and hear what you're saying. What I would ask is, as a school leader, do you see situations where one-on-one conversations can be valuable, especially when you're
So,
dealing with?
yeah, I mean, but I think that comes down to relationship too. I have a good relationship with my union rep, and she knows that if she ever wants to have a one-on-one conversation with me, always, it's an open door policy, just schedule time or come to my office. And we can talk, and we can have those conversations. Typically too, if there's conversations with her, I like to, if we add it to the joint leadership anyways, because we want to work it out as a team.
Okay, so your solution.
Now,
would
if
be-
it's about a teacher concern, then that's different, then, then those come and go throughout the year, so those can happen at any time. And a lot of times, I don't wanna wait until a monthly meeting to solve those problems.
Right.
I really wanna tackle those and get, ahead of the game and make sure that we're serving our teachers the way we should. So my union rep knows that they can come to me anytime and just have a meeting when they need it,
Okay,
so we scheduled it. Now, that's how I conduct business on my campus. And I'm sure most of the principals are the same line with that, it's easy just to schedule a meeting with the principal and have those one-on-one conversations. I just don't necessarily think that we need a joint leadership and then also another separate monthly meeting with my union rep. To just handle the same almost conversations that we would have in joint leadership.
so your recommendation would be that the union rep would approach and schedule meetings with administration as needed?
Absolutely, whenever they need to. And if it's if there's a concern on our campus. Then let's have a conversation, and I mean, you guys would agree, let's talk about it. And let's schedule meetings.
Part of me, when I was looking at the language, what kept coming to my mind was, did you have ever, like, is this happening? Are we having principals or administrators rejecting to speak to a teacher?
So I want to clarify that the value and the purpose of our contract is not just to write language about things that are happening, right? Or to prevent things from happening.
Okay.
The value of our contract is to have a joint collaborative agreement of the way our working conditions should look, where we both decide and believe that this is the value and the environment that we want for our employees. So I just wanna kind of put that out there because I noticed that that's coming up in conversation, like, well, we already do this, or, well, is this happening? That's not why we're writing language. We're not writing language. Or not writing language, I guess, or removing language just because it's already happening. The point of writing the language is to codify the type of environment that we want for our employees.
So one of the things you talked about was the 10 minutes at the end of a meeting. And you said that that should not be on LCS time, except the things that we were talking about for that time would be for the whole bargaining unit, not just members. So it's not the things that would apply just to our members. Those would be done after. To be clear.
I understand, but anything that you're gonna address from the organization, even though it's for all bargaining teachers, is coming from the organization, so it's your time. So, and you're asking for us to provide 10 minutes during LCS contract time. Now, we don't have an issue if at every meeting you want us to say, please stay afterwards if possible, because your organization would like to address certain topics. We don't have an issue with that. But that would be up to the teacher, whether it's a member or not, whether they want to stay. I'm not going to force a non-member to stay for a contract time.
So my instinct for this is, like, when we changed to video, I asked to speak to the whole thing, not be as an LCA rep, but as a member who knows about the insurance. Yes, I was an LCA member. Yes, I was the representative at the time, but I wanted to talk to the employees about the change and let them know that benefited the whole thing. That was not an LCA decision alone to make that choice. So it was. to
Staff
help
notified of
everybody.
that?
What?
Was an email sent to the staff to be notified of that, or that there was you wanted to schedule a meeting after the staff meeting?
No, we did it I got permission to do it during the meeting, but those are the types of things that we're talking about for that time. So yes, we say 10 minutes in the meeting, but chances are it's not gonna happen that often. And it might not even take that long. Like, I think we took less than 5 minutes that day. But those are the types of things that we're talking about, not LCA business.
Yeah, I think that's the confusion is that there's at least from what I'm hearing, my perception is the perception from administration is that we want this time to do union business. We do not want this time to do union business. We just had a meeting with Scott Warren, the superintendent, yesterday about issues happening with our insurance. We're gonna see more issues happening with our insurance, and we were talking about trying to work together collaboratively to communicate the new changes that are gonna be happening with our insurance moving forward. If we're gonna continue to do that, we need the space and time to do that in a space where everybody's there. I mean, you all know, right? The saying is, oh, well, this meeting could have been an email, but how many of our employees aren't reading their emails? We have to create space to communicate this messaging because they're bombarded with so much information throughout the day and so many issues with classroom management and all the things that they do. We need to create space to communicate things that are both district and union issues that we agree upon are things that need to be brought forward for the good of all employees and for the district.
So I agree with you. What would be the issue of it happening right after the staff meeting?
The problem is we need space when everybody is there to communicate this information. And when we say, if you can stay, stay, but if not, leave. We are giving people the opportunity to get up and to leave and walk away from that space without hearing that information during their contracted time. If it's about their job, if it's about their employment, they should be communicating that information during their contracted hours.
So, can I just add that it's okay, and I can only speak to each from each side, right, my point of view, right? So when we think about staff meetings, I don't hold a lot of staff meetings throughout the year, back we do hold them. They're from 8 to 8:45, 8:50 max in the morning. And typically it has to go around when we do like testing, training. I can share with you, we're barely getting in the testing training is time with the 45-minute schedule that we have, so. I'm just, I would be concerned with adding another 10 minutes on top of that. And then having to shave down now to 35 minutes for training, when we're barely making it as it is, because we have to do PSAT training for staff during our faculty meetings. We have to do testing training for the state, for PM training, throughout the year, so that makes it very difficult, and. I kind of agree with Ito's point, I understand what you're saying, like, if we would be more than happy to hold it afterwards. But we can encourage staff members to stay. I would maybe think that most staff members would. And then we can work together with our union rep to follow up with an email too. To let the staff know what information was shared. I'm just very hesitant to say the 10 minutes, add that to every staff meeting. Because we're barely making it as it is with the training that we have to do throughout the year. And I don't know if you guys are experiencing that, but we do at the middle school level when we train.
Yeah, I hear that. I think time is a limited resource, and I think
Yeah.
that's true for all levels of school employment, right? So could I ask, is the time amount, that 10 minutes, problematic, and would it be more advantageous, and we would be more open to some sort of agreement if that 10 minute was smaller?
I mean, from my point, I go back to we're barely making it as it is with the 45 minutes that I have. I would just be very hesitant to add any more time, and I don't add to anything else to those meetings. I mean, we're just training for most of that part and then the time that we have, so. To make that, I mean, what would your suggestion be? I mean, at this point, add 5 minutes. to
Yeah,
it.
I mean, even 5 minutes, because the reality is, I mean, you all know, your parents, you have families, you have other commitments and things that you have to do after contract time, and oftentimes. You have to make arrangements that impact your contract time as your schedule, and if it's something that's important to their employment, to the morale of the school and the district. We want them to have that information while they're right there in person, and they're not missing out on some of that information because they have to leave out the clock.
Yeah.
Is it something like some of the committees could do, like the insurance committee, like just record like a quick snapshot, like information that. Like can be shown, like sent out to staff or something that way, messaging is consistent across every school site.
Yeah, that's a great,
Then like we
Yeah.
can fill it in, like, let's just get it in, like sometimes it's not, but like it's something.
yeah, that is a great suggestion, and actually it's something that we've proposed with the superintendent as well as with our insurance committee. I think, again, time is the barrier, and the ability to put that together and edit it and all of those things are difficult. It's much easier for us to be able to send out to our reps and say, hey, can you please communicate this information and get with your principals, right? That can be done quicker than it could be to get with Sherry Owens and put together a video, but it is something that we're working on with the district.
We have more meetings, so, we get up once a month, we have a proper meeting, so we have more flexibility, and also our meetings are. Like right at the end of school, so if you go drop before kids are getting ready to come, you have supervision and all other kinds of things happening, so if you have to reduce that time, that's even more of a factor. So, I think it depends on the school site that you're talking about and the plan that the principal has put into play for that.
Okay, we may come back to that, but I appreciate y'all discussion on that, after we caucus. Reevaluate. Section 13, association worksite visits, so, Rita, you had brought up and asked the administrators here if we had any issue with getting on campus, and again, I'll reiterate. The value of the contract and language is to create the environment that we want to see, it's not necessarily about issues, But I will say that we have tried very hard, and I do wanna say that I'm very appreciative of the administration because we try to communicate and say, hey, we would like to come this day, is it a good day, and where can we set up? And we have been very welcomed, and supported at the schools with all administration, so I do wanna say that, you know, they have been really great at helping us. There has been one instance where that was not the case. And this particular instance was when we were coming back to a campus to provide lunch and to support our membership and the bargaining unit on collecting some data on a particular issue. So we were in the process of gathering concerns to address a grievance, potential grievance at a work site at the lowest possible level. And because that effort took place, the administrator, after we wanted to come back on campus, told us that we were not allowed to even be in the workroom where the mailbox was until the contract period had ended and students had left campus. Now, my concern with that is, number one, we have contract language that says we're allowed to be communicating with our members and putting information in mailboxes. And we also have contract language that says we're allowed to interact with our bargaining unit employees to handle potential grievances during the workday. And the third issue with that is it is potential retaliation for us having communication with our members and trying to address issues with our members. So I'm just putting that out there to say, you know, while this was one particular example, an outlier, what we want to do is continue that collaborative spirit. And I will say that with that particular administrator, we did meet and we were able to get to a point of understanding and I think a better relationship moving forward. I don't think that will happen again. Because there's things on our part that we also could do better, so I will own that. But we want this contract to be a good representation of that collaborative relationship and the environment that we want for our employees moving forward, regardless of who the school board is, regardless of the superintendent, right? And we know, you know, as much as I would love Diane Cornegie to stay around forever and our school board members to stick around forever, they eventually will be term limited. Diane will eventually retire. We don't know who we're gonna have in there. But this document will help us maintain some consistency for Lake County Public Schools and our students, regardless of who is in district leadership. So that's where that language was coming from. And again, I'll kind of reevaluate with my team where we want to go with that language.
Okay. Noted, I'll give it some thought too, in the meantime.
The respect and dignity language, there have been some cases that were communicated to us where conversations that were corrective in nature and that were not a safety concern, because I think that was brought up in some of our discussions last bargaining session, that, you know, if there is a safety concern, right? Right, somebody says duck because there's something coming, right? You want to be able to correct that and do that in a moment. We understand that. But cases that are not safety concerns or an emergency, there have been instances where members have reached out to us where they were corrected, a behavior was corrected, or they were communicated in a manner that was not very respectful, and it was around students or around other employees. And so I will say that going forward, we will do a better job of reporting that information and getting it to you so that it can be handled and can be addressed. But I think that that language is, you know, in general, good practice of good school leaders, right? I think most of our good school leaders are doing that anyways. But we want to make sure that that is something that is communicated to our school leaders, that the expectation is that we are, you know, making sure that our educators are the most professional that they can be, but we are correcting those behaviors and addressing concerns in a manner that is respectful of their dignity as a human being, as an employee, and not being done around other folks, that it should not be done. So that's where that language is from, and again, I'll get with my team in terms of how we want to go on that.
Noted.
Could you, help me understand a little bit about section 9, the class count and caseload language? The
So.
reasoning was that there's no district system. Can you explain that a little bit?
We don't have a district system. Skyward over here does not record caseload numbers. We only record numbers, students and plans, like an IEP plan. Caseloads are not recorded anywhere. Something, it's a list that the school makes for a particular teacher. Or they may split a group of students. There is no such record anywhere electronically that we're not creating such record either because it changes from school to school. So in order for me to have that, I would have to have a system in place, which could be. It's a monetary issue at that point because I will have to create a system. And we don't have any set procedures for that either.
So how does it work currently for school leaders to be able to like identify the needs and spread out the caseloads among the employees?
I will defer to them to see how they do caseloads.
I can tell you what high school, typically that's the ESC specialist in conjunction with, where the ESC administrator is, and so. We do the inclusive scheduling stuff, so we try to put them there, but, sometimes the support facilitator who has the IEP. Who's responsible for writing that IEP is not the one who's giving support always, because we have to hit the 90 minutes, so you have the rotations that kind of go around. So, and then we also have some that would have so they're gonna have a behavior class, or have a learning strats class. So their caseloads are gonna be drastically different. You can see someone who's full support facilitation, and they may have, 75 IEPs that they're responsible for writing. But they're not the only person servicing that kid for the 90 minutes. We have to hit those 90 minutes, and there's a lot that's internally. And I can only speak for Umatilla High School that we, track that 90 minutes as verification that, we're in those classes.
That's the same, our ESC specialists keep record of it, if their support facilitation full line, then they have more caseloads than those that they teach. Learning strats, I have a teacher who has, so learning strats, section and then social personal with full line, so. They may not have as many caseloads, we really try to take that into consideration. To make sure that we even it out across the board. And if there are concerns that come forward, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say we haven't had concerns, teachers will come talk, and again, it's that open door, like, hey, let's look at caseloads, and we've done that before. To try to look at the work that they do outside of caseloads. And to see if we can work as a team to try to reduce some of them if we need to, but we do the best that we can to try to even it out across the board, especially for those that. Are teaching more often and lesson planning versus teachers that are grading more versus those teachers that are just in there. I'll say just in there, but support facilitation for that purpose.
What about elementary level?
In terms of ESC support facilitation for VP, it's similar, just our ESC school specialists and our ESC staff specialists at the regional level come in. Support for moving towards inclusive schedule this year, but even prior to that. Look at all the students who are receiving services within the general classroom setting and try to even out the lows while maximizing services.
So how do you determine the number of IEPs assigned per employee? Like, is there a formula or is there guidance from the ESC department?
We get allocations from district ESC departments, so like if we have 40 teachers to support the caseload that we have, and they're looking at what students are served in an all setting versus a intensive support setting. We get allocations based on that, and then that's when we divide up the rest.
And the type of IEPs also drive that. Yeah, because if you have an ISTB, depending on the unit, you have to have certain units. Caseloads from school to school, I've been in cases that, one that I dealt with last year that a teacher had a student that was monitored on a caseload. And in this case, the question came about because of evaluations, and they wanted because they were monitoring the student grades and meeting with the student once per semester, once second semester. This was a high school incident that I recall. It was just because they wanted to keep track of the student to make sure the student was in track to graduate and all that. In this case, the teacher was just asking me, can I include that as part of my IP goals and all that for for the evaluation, that was approved immediately. It's just a matter of, it's different from school to school where the caseload, what determines a student going into a caseload or not. So we don't, there's no way of me tracking to see what's the caseload. I can track rosters. I can tell you how many students a teacher has. That I can easily do because we have systems for that.
And there's caseloads that I support certain students, and there's caseloads that I write the IEP, but it's not always the same.
Okay, that was gonna be my next question.
Yeah.
Could you clarify like the definition of caseload?
There is no, that's what I'm saying, there is no set procedure, there's no set standard.
Okay.
What a caseload in one school is different in another school. Because it's based on the needs of the school and the staff they have.
So how do you determine, like how many speech and language pathologists, support facilitators? Do you have a way that you look and see what services are being passed for?
Well, that's a roster, they get, correct, that's ESC determined, so that. See, they use that caseload, but that's rosters, because speech language has a roster. So I can tell you the caseload of a speech and language because they are rostered,
The support facilitators aren't necessarily rostered, right?
not all of
But
them.
like access would be, so if there's somebody paid access, they're gonna have 18, 20, 30 kids in there, so they're gonna have that, and that's usually their only. Kids that they're worried about. And so the allocation, my understanding, the allocations for ESCDP is based on the number of kids that you have enrolled who need services. With an IEP, that's how they determine support facilitators.
So does the ESC department, do they have a way to go and go, okay, like at my
Is it-
school, there's like over 300 IEPs, like how many students have support facilitation in how many subjects? Is that?
They go by the IEP for the allocation of teachers. But not caseloads, it's teachers.
Right, so that's what I'm asking is,
Mm.
so they have a way then to look at all of these IEPs and see how many.
Correct, that's how they determine allocations. But the allocations are not determined by caseloads.
Right.
And the ESC specialist knows, who's responsible for IEPs, but that's not necessarily the person who is in there
Right.
giving that support for the 9.
Right, because there's too many.
That's correct, yeah, and that's gonna rotate.
As a support facilitator at Eastridge High, we are on a roster.
Yeah.
So our caseloads are like in English or kind of like science. We're attached to them as a unique skills. So yes, there is a.
But that's just it, you're calling it a case, but it's a roster, you have a roster that I can identify how many you
But we're
have.
not always on the caseload.
But they're not always exactly, because everybody's, like, the kid comes out of an IEP, they go to monitor, and they might just. Tell an instructional support facilitator, just check on him every quarter, just make sure his grades are fine. But that's just done as a check off.
Is there a formula that the ESC department uses to determine, like the number of IEPs that are at a school? How much time that should typically take to, write?
That, I'm sure that's part of the allocation formula that we have a meeting for, when we allocate. And I don't have the document in front of me,
I
but
just,
we have an allocation formula that we follow, and ESC has one that they follow.
so. That would be something we could get there.
Yes, Elizabeth, you have access to that document as part of the committee, so she has access to that.
I think there are some more folks in our group that have questions or things they wanna say. I don't know if you wanna wait till after caucus and we look at language.
We can do that, but I just wanted to remind everybody that we were attached to, a lot of students of support. 100 unique skills, so.
Yeah, if they're attached, I can give the count without a problem.
Sorry, I'm trying to get organized here. Okay,
This is not easy,
section 8, we'll take a look at just to make sure that
the language,
the
yeah.
language
Yeah.
is the same intent.
I didn't, my intent was not to change the language, my intent was just to remove
Right,
the his in the middle and try to rework the language correctly.
we understand.
Just so if it's something different, then it just correct, you know.
And I know that it was brought up at our last session, changing from just employee to instructional employee, or using the word, I think, teacher is what y'all had said, or classroom teacher. Is that the
Correct. We had
alternative?
teacher, we, on Article 2, I believe it was,
Okay.
and we left either teacher, instructional employee, or educator. In that sentence, we haven't gone back to that, but
Yeah,
I've tried to keep it uniform. When I see teacher, I'm putting instructional employee. But in case we miss one, that article says that if I would have missed like the one that I missed today with the teacher, it would still imply instructional employee.
okay. Well, I figure at some point we'll need to kind of look at that. I don't know, maybe we can solve that issue today, hopefully, about what language we want to use there, because on our proposal that you'll see today, I think we put educator. So
Okay, so
we'll try to come to some consensus on.
okay.
But, we,
You have,
I think we're in agreement about moving forward on rewording things to avoid, his, hers, whatever. So I think we'll try to continue to move forward with that.
you had changed to employee, so I just was adding instructional, that's all.
So we'll take a look at that. So some of the language, like I had mentioned earlier, the intent of some of this language is to codify things that we already do, right? And so that was the intent of some of this language about requesting a free digital copy, because we already do that. So when you're referencing this statute here, does it talk about that at all? Does that statute like mention?
It measures the time,
Okay,
any excessive time passed. It's the same language that we have on our public records request website.
okay,
With the 15 minutes, past 15 minutes, if it takes longer than that, we charge an hourly rate of the person that provides the public
Oh.
record. And the only time that we charge an employee, if it becomes, let me give you an example, a teacher requesting email copies between staff members for certain days, we have to set aside an employee from IT to go through all the records to provide me all the data for that. Then once it gets provided, then I have to sit down with an employee in HR to check each employee name to make sure that there is not an exemption filed for that employee, so that we have to lock them in, certain things so when it becomes extensive,
yeah,
we follow the fee structure that chapter 119 describes in their statute.
okay,
And it's the same one that's on our website. But when an employee requests a personal file, it's very easy for us in HR to download that file. Provide it to the employee electronically, it's their file.
Oh.
So we don't, if it's their file, we don't go. And
so the statute does say, if it's less than 15 minutes.
yeah,
Okay,
it does check the time. I can double check it when we caucus, I can double check it, but we follow that statute. It's what every district follows. And you had said free, so I was just saying that I put the statement of the statute that I just follow. That fee structure, I don't get. But for the most part, I can attest that most employees that request their personal record, it's provided to them.
so under section 7 personnel files, I think it was section 2, 3, and 4, where we had proposed some new language. And I just wanted to get some clarification, have some questions about that.
2, 3, and 4. Okay, I'm going back to 2. Got it.
So, Can you explain, because you did not accept the language on no anonymous letters, right?
No, that's already stated somewhere else.
So that was the.
Yeah,
second
that is
line of
stated.
move.
Yeah, I believe I haven't brought article 8. I believe it's on 8. And if you give me time, we can double check that during when we take a break. Article 8 has states
Okay, I see now. It's under 3. It's still there. the
it's still
language.
there. The language is still, I didn't remove the language.
I see, okay.
But we've also included it in, there's another article that I believe talks about that.
And we still have the language under 7 that says employees will sign documents, is that correct?
Yes, I kept it where it was. That's all I did. I did not remove it. I just kept it where it was. Under section,
Okay.
17.
hold on, section C, 7C,
And then section 2,
section 2.
the language of no such materials may be placed in a personnel file unless they have been reduced in writing in 45 days. Was the main issue with that language, the 45-day time limit, or could you explain?
No, if there's a legal responsibility when something becomes public. If there's a discipline, it's gonna go, if there's documentation of discipline, it's gonna go in the discipline file. Unless stipulated otherwise in the article for discipline. But anything related to a personnel file. We put legal documents in the personnel file. If a letter gets sent to an employee. Or if an employee files an application to change something in their pay frequency or something to that effect, those are records, that's their personal file. The personal file of an employee has certain sections, if I recall, it's employee application, discipline, payroll, correspondence. Like, they are things that go in the personal file that an employee can add information or it's their personal file.
So is that state statute what you're referencing, or is there language somewhere that says what specifically would go in a personnel file?
And I can double check. I do know that it's a management right because it's a public record. Anything that we have on an official form becomes public. So we just don't have it public out there. It just becomes part of the personal record of the employee. You say no such materials may be placed in a personal file unless they have been reduced to writing within 40. I'm not saying what such materials are you referring to?
So I definitely want to get with my team to get clarification on that, but I believe where this language is coming from is. The concept that we want certain materials that are put in the personnel file to be valid, written down materials, not just someone's comment in a hallway or something
Okay,
like
so I
that.
can clarify that.
Okay,
Nothing goes into an employment personnel file unless it's something that is documented and the employee knows about. The only at start of employment goes the employment application, the copies of their fingerprints, not the copies. And issuance of clearances for the typical onboarding paperwork, drug test, clearances for fingerprint, documentation for onboarding. Anything else, any other documentation the employee brings as part of the onboarding process goes in the personal file. After that, nothing gets added, no anonymous letters, nobody can add anything to the personal file other than if it's an official document that the employee is aware of. The second piece is if it's disciplined, it gets added following the Articles 8 guidelines of discipline. And an employee can add to any discipline they have a comment to that we've always added anything the employee wants.
okay, thank you, that helps clarify.
Yeah, we don't add anything arbitrary to any personal file now, it's not.
So the section 6 conduct, I wanna make sure I get with my team to understand, and remind myself the additional intent of striking some of that language. So I will make sure I do that, but I believe it was a lot of the work that we're doing with our team. I have some great folks that are excellent at English, I'm not. But we're trying to clean up a lot of stuff that we feel like it's redundant or excessive language. Make it clear and to the point, and have some folks that really like clear is kind and short to the point, right? And so I believe that's where that language was coming from, but I'll double check with my team to.
Teachers have to uphold a certain code of ethics from state. That's pretty much, that's what,
Is that straight from state statute, the wording?
I don't
there?
know the wording if it comes
Okay.
straight, but just know that they're bound by code of ethics, so. If you want me to reword it to the state statute and code of ethics, it will be that, it's a generic term, basically. Yes, it's not a concern of the board, their personal life, as long as they follow that code of ethics.
I'll get.
And it's part of board policy too, so I mean, I can even pull that language.
Okay, section 5, the courier system.
Both section 5 and section 4 follow the same premise.
So when looking at that language and looking at your counter, did y'all look at any comparable contracts of other districts that we touch or compete for employees with?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so when we had pulled this language and wrote the adjustments that we made, we had looked at comparable contracts. Everything that we do, we try to compare to the districts that we touch or districts that we are similar in student population size. And so what we're trying to propose is language that would make us, just as competitive and as equal as any of our other districts that we compete for employees with. And the other concern that we had brought up was that there are outside entities that are putting stuff in our mail system, they're sending emails. And that is continuing to happen, but we're getting excessive restrictions on what we can send. And so we feel that that's putting an excessive burden and more restriction on us as the bargaining unit of Lake County Public Schools than some outside entity that has no interest in making sure our schools are the best they can be.
Our stand has always been with, when it comes to this topic, we have no issues with sending any information regarding a meeting, regarding contract language, regarding all the stipulations that we have here, contract ratification, voting, no issues with that. Anything other than that is our stance that the organization can communicate with their members through their personal email. We have never made that any different, or we've always stood. Now, I cannot control what every other company sends out to people. We've managed to change things in our website as far as getting companies scraping emails from websites and district personnel, because that's how they do it. But we have no control. We can put filters, and IT works on putting filters. So nobody's stopping from you sending information that it will be put in teachers' mailboxes when it comes to that. So that's always been the language and the district stance on it.
And I understand, historical, but I think we can all agree that historically, some decisions and language that was made is not really accurate or beneficial for employees today. I think the biggest concern is whether or not you can control it or not, it is happening. Other outside entities are soliciting constantly our employees for their money, for them to sign up for things, for them to purchase things. And all we are asking is that we get equal treatment to be able to communicate to our bargaining units, because we do care about Lake County schools. We are not a corporate entity trying to profit off of our teachers. We're trying to help them and improve our students and our community. So all we're asking for is the same treatment as these corporate entities trying to get money from our employees.
I understand.
Section 3 mailboxes, can you explain why you removed the strike through for the postal system?
If you wanna mail something, you can. You already can put something in a mailbox that, as long as it follows the guidelines expressed there. So. I guess the intent of crossing through the postal service is that you wanna be able to use. Mailboxes for communication to employees. But you don't wanna have to mail whatever communication you have.
Well, I believe, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, I believe again, the intent of that was to clean up language, if it was unnecessary language, we didn't need that wording.
Okay.
I'll double.
I will review it, again.
I think that's all I have question wise. At the moment, we may have more when we come back.
When we send you this file, we'll send it with the date at the top, like you said, and all that.
Would, this is the only proposal y'all have today, correct?
Yes, I'm still reviewing
Okay,
8 and 9.
would you like, to take a break now, or do you want me to go ahead and move forward with our?
You guys okay to move forward? Yeah, okay. fine.
So what I would like to do, if it's okay with y'all, I have two articles today, Article 12 and Article 17. I would like to propose 17 right now, and then caucus, and after we caucus, bring forward Article 12. Had a late night for this past several nights trying to prepare everything, and so did my team, so we just want to make sure that we are all on the same page before I propose 12 today. So if
Okay.
a 10-20 minute caucus would be okay.
That's fine. I'm okay. with it. Hmm?
That's right. That's right.
All right, did everybody get a copy?
Yep.
Are y'all ready?
This way, but yeah, I got to pass stuff like that, but then all the whole year's out. Hey, my son's funny here. I'm like, oh, there's a plug right here. There is. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right here. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Never mind, I'm sorry. Ask you to shower with you. Thanks, girl.
Okay. You good to start? Okay, so, this article 17 is on transfers, reduction, and force into vacancies. As I mentioned earlier, you're gonna see a lot of the teacher cross out and educator put in. We'll try to solve that problem today so that we're in agreement on that. So you see that section 1 authority. For section 2, again, we were trying to clean up and reorganize language so that we're not being repetitive and having to repeat things in multiple places. So you'll see that we moved language down from the previous paragraph. So that that's why that first section 2 sentence is not bold or underlined or anything, because it's still the same language. All we did was just move it down. And you'll see in parentheses it says move down. And we also added the word reassignment there. There was a separate section for reassignment. And that is section 5. And we did cross that out and put in parentheses, move to section 2. Because a lot of that language was the same, like it was talking about moving boxes, if you had to change classrooms, it was talking about if you're out of field. That you'll be able to get some reimbursement, things like that. So we said, okay, let's not be redundant, repeat language, let's put it in the same place. So that's why we added and reassignment there.
Okay, so make sure that I understand section 5, you included in section 2,
Correct.
the part where it says,
So part C, so if you go to the second page, the back of the second page, you're gonna see part C that says reassignments. That was the only language that wasn't repetitive already in this section about reassignment. And all we did was just move it there to section C. The other language about moving classrooms and about being out of field was already in this transfer section.
okay, so let me go back to section 2, the communication of the transfer, is that? Did you say that's new language?
So I haven't gotten there yet. I was
Okay.
just addressing why we added the word reassignment.
And reassignment, okay, sorry.
No problem.
Just-
Okay, so the new language there that's bold and underlined under that sentence is communication of the transfer window and process will be provided 5 working days before the transfer period opens. This is something that I believe is already being done. There's already communication about the transfer period. And y'all have been really great about including the details about what that transfer process looks like. I know we received some questions this year about it. I think there was some confusion about how to do the process. There's some slight changes. I know we got a new system for employment, so that maybe could be why there was some confusion.
All right, this was the first year we
There was moved to new contract.
we moved to the new ATS, and there was confusion how to get to the internal job postings.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
we didn't want people from outside having access to the,
Right.
code. You have to put a code in. Like,
So we
get them.
do appreciate the communication on that, and again, we're codifying that language here. We wanna make sure that we have that language for our employees moving forward. And then you'll see language there that says all job vacancies must be posted for the entire transfer period. If additional jobs are posted during the transfer period, the period will be extended to allow for a 5-day internal transfer posting for those jobs. So this language came about, and I think we are on an unusual year this year, but I think we can all agree we're in unprecedented times, and it doesn't seem like those unprecedented times are going to go away anytime soon. So this may be an issue again moving forward. But what happened with this year, I believe that only some jobs were posted, and then later on, more jobs were posted. And so the idea is that everyone gets the same amount of time for when jobs are posted to be able to apply and do that transfer window. So that's where that language is coming from, and I don't know, Bobby, if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Just to clarify, like at the beginning on Monday, I can't remember the number, but it was somewhere around 30 or 40 jobs were posted, and by Friday, there were many more jobs posted. So basically what we're trying to say here is that if jobs get added, those jobs will stay internal for the full 5 days, so that people have a chance at those jobs before new hires start.
So to make sure, I'm gonna repeat it, to make sure that I understand. So during transfer period starts Monday, we had X amount of jobs, then comes Wednesday of that same week, you had more jobs.
Yeah,
posted.
20 jobs drop in on Wednesday.
Yeah.
We'd like those jobs to be in for the full 5 days, so that access would be available just for internal.
Yeah, no, I put the note of that. Okay,
Does
thank you.
that- yeah.
I understand exactly.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I understood.
I mean, actually, I think there were actually some jobs that didn't show up until the very end of that period. In the.
I know what happens a lot is that they, after the transfer period, some principals extend the current posting, or they just close and redo another one. Depending on, some schools are different, it's just, they extend or they create another, depending on the need, things change.
And I know there were issues getting them into there and all of that, but we are looking at. This is not necessarily a unique situation.
The second sentence there, I believe this is language, again, that we already pretty much are doing, we're just codifying it. So it says during this time period, human resources shall provide a list of job postings and a list of non-reappointed educators eligible for reappointment to the association and all worksite administrators. Vacancies shall be provided to all instructional personnel. So I believe that's pretty much happening. I would imagine that we're already communicating to administrators like, hey, these are the folks that were not reappointed. These are their certifications, so we can place them internally, because I think that's something that we really want to stress, especially when there is a need for educators, that we're keeping folks that are already in the system, that have already gone through HR and fingerprinting and drug testing, all those things. Will save taxpayer dollars if we can keep them in the system. And especially if the reason they were not reappointed is just they weren't great at elementary, maybe they'll be better at middle, or they just didn't get along with their particular team. We want to keep them as a highly effective or effective employees. And it would save taxpayer dollars to not have to hire somebody new. For A, voluntary transfers, that again was us trying to change the word teacher to educator. B, involuntary transfers, see again, crossing out teacher and adding educator. We also cross out school, the word school, changed it to work site. We know, especially with this year, there was a lot of movement between whether you're at virtual and brick and mortar or departments into the school work site. So we want to use that word work site as opposed to the school. We've added some language here. Again, all of the language has been from other contracts. So we looked at our neighbors and our equal size districts for this new language. So that's where this language has been pulled. I believe a lot of this language you'll see today is from Seminole County and Polk and Volusia. And I think some from Orange as well. So the new language here, such transfers shall not be done in a punitive manner. Those employees transferred by the superintendent shall be provided notification in writing in a formal setting prior to the transfer. And I think there might be an accidental extra period there. Not sure if that's just a, yeah. The next line, administrators will identify and notify employees for involuntary transfer. Human Resources will develop a district-wide involuntary transfer list and vacancy list. A list of vacancies will be provided to the affected employees. A period of time will be designated for affected employees to interview and are be assigned to vacancies. If vacancies exist for which the educator is certified and or qualified, they shall be offered a position prior to the assignment of other voluntary transfers or new hire. So again, this language is pulled from other contracts that we mentioned, and I think this year was a very, again, unusual year, and I think a lot of the practices that the district implemented were similar to this. So we're just trying to codify that language. And again, moving forward, we know things are crazy with funding, so this may happen again.
I have some thoughts and questions, but I'm gonna go get them all together.
And then that last paragraph in that section, all we did was just cross out the word the teachers. We felt it was unnecessary. You know, when we're trying to move away from using that word teacher. C, reassignment, that was that language that I mentioned that we moved from section 5. That was not a duplicate already somewhere else. So the superintendent will have the authority to reassign educators, including reassignment of duties and responsibilities within the school, when the interests of the education program and operation and efficiency of the school system require such action. We did not change that language in any way. We just moved.
Yeah, it's moved from section 5.
Yes. The next sentence there, we crossed up the word teacher, added educator. And then some cleanup on the next sentence, so instead of saying such, we say any. And then again, crossing out teacher and adding educator. I don't think there is any others on 2, and then section 3 vacancies. I don't think we touched it, there's no changes there. So section 4, reduction in force. We added to the first sentence, and it looks like there's some typos there, we might, fix. It looks like there's some extra periods. So, I would say that period before board action is not needed there. So we added language, the association must be provided written notice at least 15 days prior to board action if there's a reduction in force. And we added a period there and just capitalized the for the next sentence. Then the next sentence, we've added performance evaluation will be based on the higher of the most recent evaluation or a 3-year average. It wasn't defined anywhere what performance evaluation was in this section, and we noticed that some other contracts, I believe it was the Lucia, I'm not 100%, mentioned and defined what the performance evaluation was, and that it was a 3-year average.
And we looked at the statute, and the statute just says performance evaluation, it doesn't say which one. And we didn't want we did not want an employee to be placed lower on the rehired list or be selected based on a single evaluation in case that was not indicative of the employee's performance over time.
So if a reduction in force happens, you want us to not go by seniority, but by performance evaluation.
We can't go by seniority
We can't.
according to the statute.
Correct, I know, but that's what I'm saying, like, you want us to follow at least some type of structure based on performance evaluation.
Right, we're defining what performance evaluation is here. And then we've also added language that if in some instance there is a tie, you have 2 employees that have the same evaluation, performance evaluation. That in that case, if the evaluations are equal, the least senior teacher is laid off.
And we did look through that and basically, if it's not the primary selection criteria, then it seems to be permissible.
And Volusia County already has language like this in their.
Actually, several, no doubt. Because there has to be some type of tiebreaker. Considered.
So we already mentioned section 5, it's all crossed out because we moved that language to section 2. And then we renumbered from here, so you'll see section 6 is now renumbered 5. And we crossed out the word teacher and added educator. I believe there's no changes there in A and B. So if you go to the back C. Again, you'll see 3 teachers crossed out and educator added. And then we have some new language. We added, if this distribution occurs within 30 days of the transfer period, all effective employees need to receive a written notice of reappointment prior to redistribution. Obviously, we can't predict the future and what it's gonna look like if we ever have to be in this unfortunate circumstance of redistributing employees. But we know that there have been cases, for example, with schools opening, which is great, right? Wanna have schools opening. But in those cases, it was done very close to reappointment, but folks were not told that they were reappointed yet. And so they were put in a position where they're like, what do we do? Do I apply to the new school or do I not apply to the new school? I don't know if my principal wants me here or not, you know, so we want to create the best conditions and systems in place where if an employee is given all the information, as clear as kind, they can make the best decision for themselves whether or not to apply at the new school or not. And so we would like, if it's close to the transfer period and close to reappointment, that they're communicated on whether or not the intent of the administration is to keep them. Section 6, recall of reduction in force. So we added this language because we saw in multiple contracts, they had language about bringing folks back when they had been laid off. And so this was called recall. So it says recall must be offered in reverse order of reduction in force. No new educators shall be hired in a reduction in force educator subject or grade level until all certified and fully approved reduction in force educators from that subject area or grade level have been recalled or have declined or failed to accept recall. And that's language just taken from our neighboring contracts. And then section 7, school relocation. This came up because we're seeing obviously more growth and building and updating things in our district, and we want to continue to see that. But we also want to make sure that we're providing the opportunities for teachers to do what they need to do and educators to do what they need to do to get their materials together to move to a new school location. So that's what this is about. So when employees are required to relocate to another school or work site for longer than 30 calendar days due to construction or safety concerns, educators will be provided 2 contracted non-student work days or 2 additional paid days to pack prior to the move and 2 paid days to unpack post-move. The district provides packing materials, boxes, tape, etc. The responsibility for moving furniture, equipment, and packed materials is sole responsibility of the district. We know this happens even at the end of the year when teachers are packing classrooms and are trying to get things done during their contracted hours, that things are happening that really shouldn't be happening, right? Like our students are helping us pack up our rooms and clean our rooms. We have instructional employees moving heavy things, moving boxes. And I have sat in enough insurance committee meetings and had enough conversations with Rob Boyer to know that risk management and employee workers' comp issues are a problem and they cost a lot of taxpayer dollars. So the last thing we want is an issue with students having to move materials or help a teacher move while they're on contract supervising students, or a teacher moving things when it's not really in their job description or duties to do that. So that's the intent of this language here.
And it takes time.
Yes.
Is section 7, as an example, you're referring to, like, for instance, very short moving?
Correct. That is one example, but I think we can foresee other situations like,
CEO, well, Woodland Park moving.
right?
Okay.
Do you have any questions? Do you want to copy this and come back?
Yeah, we need some time to gather my thoughts and. For example, that last one. I will have to see what the impact cost would be for that. There's two schools, two full staff schools. 4 days each. What the impact of that is. And I may have some other questions that I'm.
So do you want to take a 20-minute or how much time, or do we want to break like for lunch? It's 11:30.
It's 11:30. You have one more article, correct?
I do.
And
And we can also try to look at what you proposed today and see if we can come back with anything as well.
okay, so do you wanna? You wanna? Take a lunch break?
Whatever you want to do.
You needed time to meet for article, the other article, correct?
At least like 20 minutes. or so.
I'm sorry?
At least like 20 minutes would be great. If we're gonna only caucus and not go to lunch, I would love to have at least 20 minutes. So,
Well, I don't wanna hold people for meetings, so that needs to take the guidance. You wanna take a lunch?
Yeah, you're
Wanna
buying,
power through?
you're buying lunch, right?
Yeah.
That's what we thought. No,
Do you wanna power through this?
it's whatever you want, we're here to help, whatever you want. Good.
I'm fine, yeah, I'm fine either way.
All right, so let's take a caucus for a second so that you can go ahead and discuss the article that you're.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So with 20 minutes, so are we gonna come back like 11:55?
And, all right, it's 11:35. Let's caucus till, let's just say 12, right on the dot, 25 minutes. We'll come back to, for processing at this time for 25 minutes.
I really, all right,
It is 12:08. We're resuming back meeting from office. And
We have Article 12, so we're gonna pass that around for you. Really quick, before we get started, I just wanted to share that we did caucus and decide that we are okay with moving forward with instructional employee for all of the language instead of teacher, so we'll change that on our articles. Forward.
And when I send you I'll make sure to follow the format that you have with the proposals at the top. And
Perfect,
then share the documents with you.
and we will as well. All right, so professional compensation is Article 12, for section 1, started with salary schedule, we crossed out the word salary and we added the word placement. And you'll see that again in the second sentence. We've added the word the placement. So we've had lots of conversations about salary schedule, the placement schedule. Basically since, I don't know, 2012, when I first started teaching and the law was changed, or 2011. And Guido, I know you personally have dealt with the frustration probably of communicating salary and compensation. And that's where a lot of this language is coming from, is we are trying to create clarity, it's again, clear as climbed, about our placement and our compensation. And we know placement is different than in the past, the grandfather salary schedule and how people would get automatic steps. So we want to make sure we clarify that, and that's why we're adding the word placement. So folks understand, they don't get confused. We still have folks ask, where are our steps? When are we gonna get in our steps? Why don't we have our steps back? And there's a lot of confusion about what it means to be a grandfather versus annual contract, all of those things. So that's where a lot of this language is coming from in this section, and further language you're gonna see in the section, communication is the big thing for this article. You'll see language crossed out there that says, and will contain 5 paid holidays. We felt like that language is in the wrong place, so we crossed it out there. We actually moved and added language to section 6. The last sentence, so you'll see it in section 6, and I can come back to that as well when we get to section 6.
So I'm just making a note because
Yeah.
it was not noted.
So that's why it's crossed out.
Okay,
The second paragraph there will go forward with employee instead of teacher, instructional employee instead of teacher. We have new language here. Notification will be sent out via email to all instructional employees once the salary summary screen is updated with an FAQ about instructional compensation. The total salary summary will include a total assignment summary with index amount, degree differential, and all performance pay earned, including the current year. So again, this is about communication, and I believe some of this we already do. I think when the salary summary is updated, there is some sort of communication, so we want to codify that. And on the salary summary page, this information is represented, so again, we want to codify that. But the FAQ and further communication would be extremely helpful. We as a bargaining team have actually developed a compensation FAQ on our website that goes into lots of detail. And we're finding that often even district employees are going and looking at that information or asking about that information, especially when we're going to ratify, we're communicating now, you know, what does the compensation package mean, or how's it gonna affect employees and things like that. So we believe that that communication should really be coming from HR and the district, not just us. And so we'd really like to work together, and I've mentioned this collaboratively, even like we said with the insurance committee, to collaborate on communication so that our employees really understand and know what's going on with compensation. And I think moving forward, what's happening to funding in public education, information is key, education is key. If our employees don't understand why their compensation is the way it is, they're gonna be really upset and not okay, and rightfully so, because honestly, funding and compensation is a problem in this state and in this nation. But we have got to have clear communication and education about the salary and why it is the way it is, so folks really understand. The next sentence there will change to instructional employee instead of teacher. We, for section 2, placement credit, all we did was cross out the teachers and add educators, so we'll adjust that to be instructional employee. Same with section 3, just cross off the word teacher and added educator, so we'll adjust that to instructional employee. Verification, section 4, same thing, you'll see 3 there, teacher crossed out, and educator added, so we'll change that to instructional employee. And then we did add the word will. Again, that was a grammatical
yeah, they do get credit for that.
grammar piece. And then section 5, terminal pay, the same thing, you're gonna see 2 in the first paragraph. Teacher crossed out, added the word educator. And then we did cross off at that top sentence there, school board policy. I'm not sure if that policy has changed or if we were eliminating it because it could change. You want to speak to that, do you remember? Okay, I think that was the reasoning, is because school board policy does change, and that, you know, also the Florida statute is there. So the Florida statute explains that.
And
That bottom paragraph in section 5 just has educator crossed out twice, or I'm sorry, teacher crossed out twice and educator added, so we'll change that to instructional employee. Section 6, we added new language here, and we also crossed out the word teacher in the title, added the word educator, so we'll change that to instructional employee. The first 2 sentences, same thing, crossed out teacher, added educator, so we'll change that to instructional employee. And then we added language at the bottom This is any instructional employee that starts their first workday at the beginning of the instructional contract will have their compensated prorated based on the number of workdays and paid holidays remaining in the 196-day contract year. So again, this is something that's already done. Clear as kind. We're trying to communicate to folks all the time. We get folks that start in February and then they email us and they are very upset. Why am I not making 48,000 or whatever the case may be? They don't understand that we're contracted employees over 196 days. So we want that language here to get clear.
I think you and I have shared that conversation
Yes.
many times.
Yeah. The new paragraph there, we already do this. So we're adding language about the calendar and how the calendar is determined through through calendar committees. So it says 196-day calendar will be determined during the annual district school calendar committee meetings. The board and association agreed to form a joint school calendar committee. The association shall appoint at least 5 representatives. This committee shall meet at a minimum annually to develop and recommend school calendars for consideration by the superintendent and school board. Committee recommendations shall include the scheduling of planning days, educator work days, early release days, holidays, non-work days, and other relevant elements impacting the instructional calendar. The 196-day calendar will contain 6 paid holidays. So that is that language that we crossed out in sections 1 that said will contain 5 paid holidays. We've now added it there and added 6. So I'll explain the rationale and where this is coming from. In the past couple of years with our calendar committee, we have a situation where it's determining whether or not we're gonna take Veterans Day off, or if we're gonna take President's Day off, or if we're gonna take MLK Day as a paid holiday, and there seems to be some confusion and debate. A lot of folks are upset if we don't include Veterans Day as a paid holiday. And so we're trying to end that debate and solve the problem right here, so that way we recognize all of those holidays. So, for example, for next year, one of my colleagues printed out the 25-26. The paid holidays that we have is Labor Day, Veterans Day, New Year's Day, Martin Luther King Day, and Memorial Day. But we don't have President's Day included in there, right? So the idea is to add that 6 so that we have the President's Day and the Veterans Day and all those other. Section 7,
I had a question over that section. You put the association should appoint at least 5 representatives.
yes.
How many, do you recall how many do you have right now?
So this hasn't been codified, and I don't think there's any policy or anything that, at least that I'm aware of, but I will say in the past several years, we've had multiple LCA members on that committee. From multiple departments, like we've had program specialists.
Correct. So that's what I'm saying. I think you already have multiple. I just didn't know exactly.
I don't think it's codified anywhere or specified.
Okay, so. Okay,
The reason I think we chose 5 is that's kind of how it is for
Consistent, yeah.
other joint committees, and it just seemed to be consistent, so we wouldn't have to remember this is a different number.
and no, like I said, I was trying to remember, because we just had a
Yeah.
meeting when we recently did the calendars last school year. Coming up, and then I was trying to remember how many
Yeah,
teachers were
yeah,
there.
I'm not aware of any policy anywhere or anything.
Okay,
Section 7. Additional days worked. So we were trying to just clean up the language and remove the pronoun there. So we just crossed out day work to additional work days. And then teacher crossed out to educator, which will change to instructional employee. And then we added the sentence at the end. The number of additional contract days for each instructional category will be specified in the appendix. So we don't have that documented anywhere in the contract about the additional days that some employees in our bargaining unit work. And we know that that affects their compensation. So we believe that that should be documented in an appendix in the contract. Section 8, all we did was remove teachers and add educators. You'll see that on the last 4 lines or last 4 paragraphs.
section 8.
Section 9, overpayment, we crossed off teacher twice there, added educator, which will add instructional employee. And then we were trying to update and correct the location there of the representative of the school system, and we put finance department instead of office. But if there's a better wording or language there, from the district side, love to know how to update that.
That already happens that way.
Yeah.
Typically HR is involved, sometimes payroll's involved. Because we provide options to the employee when that happens.
We didn't know if that was the correct term or what term should be there.
That's fine.
Section 10, you'll see a teacher cross out and then educator added. And then we've added some language to the last sentence there. The workshop stipend rate is specified in the appendix, so it's just drawing the attention if folks are wondering where that amount is or what the amount is.
It is there, it's in the
Yes,
appendix.
yeah, we're
Okay.
just notifying folks, because again, I think when you're reading the contract and you see professional conversation, you think, oh, that's where I'm gonna find out how much I'm gonna make. Well, this is just language. So we're showing folks where to find that actual number. All right, so section 11 is our big section that we've added language. The purpose of all of this language is relevant to what has happened in the past with changes in our health benefits and prescription benefit manager, et cetera, as well as going forward, right? We've already heard in the past 2 years about the insurance budget being in a deficit. I think we're looking at 7 million or something this year. We are very concerned about that, and we want to make sure that communication, again, clear is kind, the communication is widespread, robust, and efficient, and folks are given plenty of time to be informed and make the right decisions financially, and health-wise for their, benefits, their employee benefits that were part of their negotiated compensation plan when they started employment at Lake County Schools. So that's where this language is coming from. We pulled a lot of this language again from neighboring contracts. So we looked at the other districts that touch us or are similar in size and added that language here. And it is in that spirit of continued collaboration. We have been working really well, I think, with the insurance committee and Rob Hoyer and the superintendent. We've also met with school board members when there's issues about the insurance, and we have come to consensus and collaboration on particular things. For example, the messaging piece about Vivio and how to improve that. We have talked about, creating more FAQs, and that was done after, but there was an FAQ that was sent out about Vivio that we worked to help to develop. The videos that we're talking about trying to do moving forward about the insurance benefits that we have as a district. So we're trying to continue to move in that direction of collaboration, and that spirit did continue yesterday as we met with Scott Ward. And this morning we had a phone call with Scott Ward and Marisol and Rob. So we're continuing to try to collaborate and problem solve, and we want to be an equal part of that problem solving because we realize that when we're not a part of those conversations and we're not involved, things happen and people are blindsided and very upset. And what happened with Vivio, truth be told, should not have happened the way it did. And we've addressed that with Rob, we've addressed that with school board, we've addressed that with the superintendent. But folks were put in a very, very difficult situation. It impacted them financially. It caused a lot of stress. Folks had to take time off because they weren't getting the medications or they had to make doctor's appointments to get approval. I know many of our employees were impacted, including department and school leaders and our non-instructional staff. So that's, I'm sorry.
I just wanna add, but you understand the implications of what would have happened had we not changed.
So none of this language is saying we don't want to help make sure that we are using taxpayer dollars wisely and that our educators are receiving quality benefits and not having an undue burden of financial impact. We are not saying that none of that should take place. What we are saying is that we want to be equal partners in those conversations and that we want to be included in how to communicate that stuff, what changes to make and when. So that's what all of this language is about, because there was a lot of undue stress that was put on folks that were having to beg for their medication. And we want to make sure that the humanity of our educators is respected and they have the benefits that they thought they were going to have when they signed on as an employee of Lake County School. So that's where all of this is coming from, just to kind of lay the groundwork. So we added prescription benefit manager or PBM to section 11, as well as other benefits. So that way that was not excluded in any sort of communication and negotiations moving forward and conversations moving forward, because we see the substantial impact of that. We then crossed out the word and that's how we added the comma there in that PBM piece. Section C, we added the board shall provide written notice through mail, email, and telephonic communication to the association as all affected employees no fewer than 90 calendar days in advance of any proposed changes to employee health insurance benefits. This includes modifications to premiums, coverage levels, plan design, carriers, or third-party administrators. Sorry, my computer suddenly wanted to die on me. Okay. Change notification shall include a summary of the proposed changes, a side-by-side comparison of the current and proposed benefits, a rationale for the proposed changes, including financial analysis where applicable, clear instructions on how employees can provide feedback, a timeline or summary of the rollout of the change, steps employees need to take to ensure continuous coverage. The last of those bullets on the next page. We've added employee education and communication. The board shall provide at least one annual benefits education in-person session in each region for all employees prior to the annual enrollment period and virtual options. The sessions shall include an overview of health plan options and benefits, information specific to the self-insured structure and employee cost sharing, a Q&A segment with district benefit staff and third-party administrators, distribution of digital and print benefits guide, the information distributed from / on the change notification. These sections will be offered both in person and virtually and shall be recorded for employees to access on demand through the Inside Lake or Lake County Schools website. And then we've added a section PBM, so prescription benefit managers. The district will communicate in detail the steps of the pre-authorization and appeal process. The insured will not be required to obtain pre-authorization more than once for any new medication. The district will support employees through the pre-authorization process, including providing support between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Prescription bills will continue for any currently prescribed medication or bridge bills until the employee completes the full pre-authorization and appeals process. In D, we crossed out the word teacher and add the word educator, so we'll do instructional employee there. E, we've added the Joint Insurance Advisory Committee title there. And then below that, we added to Joint Advisory Insurance Committee to have the word annually. And then added, if meetings are conducted during contract hours, instructional employees will receive release time, including travel and class coverage if applicable. And then at the last section there, that last sentence, it says insurance review, financial, actuary, and usage reports related to the insurance plans and budget would be presented at those meetings. And conduct periodic reviews of employee satisfaction. We then added language about RFPs. You'll see one there, RFPs advise on the development of RFPs for third-party administrators and other benefit vendors. Review and provide input on the following: ranking and determination of RFPs, proposed changes to the benefit plan, vendor contracts and rollout plan of proposed changes to any plans, carriers, or third-party administrators. Then on the next page, we have 2, ensuring ethical and strategic selection. Both parties acknowledge that any proposed healthcare plan must comply with all local, state, and federal law, legal regulations, or legal requirements governing public sector healthcare plans. The selected healthcare administrator will operate independently without any direct or indirect conflict of interest and will prioritize the well-being of employees, the district, and the broader school community. I believe that next section had an F there, so we cross that out, and it's just numbered 3. And then section 4 and 5 is new. So the district shall ensure timely and complete sharing of relevant data, Any plan/vendor changes requiring board approval must first be presented to the committee with at least 120 calendar days notice with details including the timeline for implementation and the extent of the disruptions. A cost benefit analysis of the disruptions. Committee should be alerted to an RFP and communicated within the timeline of the RFP and the process within 90 days of the first RFP meeting. 5, advance access to third-party vendor contracts. The district shall provide the association and the Joint Insurance Advisory Committee with access to any proposed contracts, renewals, or amendments with third-party benefit vendors, including insurance carriers, third-party administrators, and wellness program providers. No fewer than 14 calendar days before any scheduled committee meeting where such vendor or proposal will be discussed. This documentation shall include the draft contract, scope of services, cost estimates, and relevant performance data if applicable. In G, we crossed out teacher and added educators, so that would be changed to instructional employee. Section 12, all we did was cross out the language at the end that said the Joint Insurance Advisory Committee will review plans annually and may recommend canceling plans that are not in the best interest of employees. So what we did is we removed that language and actually added that in the language that we added in E in the previous section. So that's section 11, sorry, section 11E.
Section 11.
Yeah, that's, I believe, where we added the Joint Insurance Advisory. I also just was pointed out an error on section 11, that very last bullet on section 11 says G, and that needs to be changed to F.
Well, as G changed it to that, yes. Yeah.
And then back to the back page. The section 13 changes, we just cross out the word teacher 3 times and add the word educator, so we'll change that to instructional employee. And then section 14. We added the word will be awarded for the master's degree. Just cleaning that up a little bit. And then crossed off may only be awarded in the advanced degree is held in the individual's area of certification. Because the law changed, right? And cross off the word teacher and added to the word educator. So we'll change that to instructional. And that's all the changes we have for us, Article 12. I did have something I wanted to just mention briefly because it was brought up in our conversation. And I know this may get us down a rabbit hole of how we communicate compensation, but when we made the change with direct differential pay, so I believe that was last year or the year prior, we had a separate differential pay line for folks in an area of certification. Is that correct? Am I remembering that correct? And at that time, there was a separate line in the paycheck. So folks could see, they could see their differential pay as a separate line as opposed to bundled into their base pay.
Correct.
So it was brought up that there was a lot of confusion about whether or not folks were receiving their differential pay. And I will say, when I was at work sites, I had to explain it, show it to folks that they were actually still receiving their differential pay.
In the salary summary.
That's what I was doing. But the problem is they were looking at their paycheck and they didn't see it on their paycheck. So if there's some way that we could communicate that or figure out a way to display it, I don't know what it needs to be, but there probably should be some communication, so that way folks aren't thinking they're not getting their differential pay.
They are, because it's explaining the salary summary, so it's just. If they're getting paid for it, we're not putting an additional line guideboard for it, because it's part of it. The only time we put an additional supplement when they do. A supplement based position like a department chair. Or if they do performance pay the first year because it's a contract, well, at the moment let's say we reach an agreement on performance pay, that's a separate item for that year, and then gets rolled into the following year. So that changes, all that is part of base salary.
Right, and is master's part of that too? Like,
Yes, it's
typically
rolled,
differential pay is rolled into
considered
base.
part of salary.
So what would be the logistics or the cost of if there was some way to do like a pop-up bubble or something on that screen when they look at their pay stubs, it says, if you have questions about your pay or your salary, go to the salary summary page or something, we can direct folks.
Yeah, I mean, we can, but it's explained in the salary summary. When they hover over everything, there's a screen that pops up with information.
So I'll just say,
I understand.
every day we get these calls. Every day that I'm at a work site, I have these conversations. I don't think folks even necessarily know about the salary summary or know it exists. So if there's some way we can draw their attention to that. Or make a video and show it during pre-planning or send it via email, whatever it may be, that there's additional communication. So that folks understand how to find information about their salary and why it is demanded.
Section 14, you cross out the line may only be awarded to the advanced degrees held individual area certification. Yes, that is correct, that the law has changed, but I want to make note of something. That cost right there would be about $1 million. So just know that that's what that little line costs if we were to do that. And it represents about 200 and last time I checked, it was about 230 employees, give or take a few less or more. I'll get a more accurate forecast with the current employees out there.
Right, any other questions about our school? Wow.
No, that one. It's a lot, I need to spend time to digest. All the added language specifically with the. Health, because I need to get risk management involved and.
And our understanding from the conversation we had this morning with Marisol and Scott and Rob was that their intention is to hold an insurance committee meeting on Thursday. Virtually,
Correct.
so I don't know if,
I was just informed that probably like
yes,
right before this.
right, so I don't know if there needs to be conversation. I don't know, because a lot of this stuff applies to that committee.
I know, I understand.
So it is 12:38. I think at the moment, that's all we have to present. We did have some additional questions that we wanted to ask. In regards specifically to the Article 4, I want to say it was, yeah, the Article 4.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to remember where it was. I don't know what the consensus is with this group on whether or not it was Article 4, Section 9.
Section what?
9.
Okay.
Since it's 12:40, and we do have some questions on this, but we're not ready to propose any language or anything like that at this time. Would the consensus of the group be to kind of ask those questions now? Break for lunch, or do we want to break for lunch and then come back with maybe questions or any counter language that we could have prepared? What would y'all prefer?
If you wanna ask me the questions now, then we can break for lunch.
Okay,
That way at least it gives me, and I get to start thinking about it.
okay, are y'all okay with that? Okay, so I'm gonna defer to my experts at the table that would like to speak and ask some questions about the class count and caseload language that was not added,
Okay?
so.
Well, one of my first questions would be, class count to me is different than caseload. As an ESC person, class count to me, the roster, it's names on it, and then caseload would be something that I'm assigned to as the PSC case manager.
Yep.
So there's a difference between those two. And then there's
One of the things that I would like to propose is we need a SAP. Because ESC has teachers that are actually teaching classes. ESC has self-contained classes. They have support facilitators that go from room to room to room. And there's a lot of different things that add up, so I think that it should have some sort of an SOP. So that there's a you can differentiate the different positions that everybody's doing. Because some people, when we talk about caseloads, are teaching a full, 76 periods. And also have a big caseload, and it's very different.
And one of the concerns as well, as far as things being quantifiable. In focus, there is specifically a line, as you all know, for case manager. And the case manager, I would imagine that every school would be the person writing the IEP, because that is a legal issue. Each of the students, I believe we have around 430 at Eastridge, around the same at Lake Mineola. That every student must have a case manager who's writing the IEP, regardless of who is providing the services. So in different situations, you're gonna have that, but someone has to be responsible and assign the student as far as who is writing the IEP. So those numbers, they do matter. And it does matter who is held responsible for showing up writing that IEP. So those case management things do matter. We need to make sure that that's getting done and how that's being done in an equitable fashion. From school to school, we need a standard operating procedure for the transition from one school to the next, and that sort of thing is extremely important to make sure that the services, do that. We can look at peer at numbers and services. We can look on focus at numbers and services. We're talking caseloads, guidance counselors. Are they balanced? Are they equitable? ESE caseloads, are they balanced? Are they equitable? 504, are they balanced? Are they equitable? All of those things are absolutely quantifiable, and we do need to look at that to make sure. It had been mentioned that the ESE school specialists, they may or may not be the ones doing the caseloads. It could be a department, it could be this, as you said, it's different at every school and everybody works a different way. But we still do need to make sure that the equity is involved and that whether you are providing the support, providing the class, providing things differently, and all the things that you said make absolute sense. We have self-contained classes, we have people that do many different things. I teach learning strategies and intensive reading. Some people teach learning strategies and support. Every school has their strengths and their weaknesses, but ultimately being there to interview a student, being there to interview the parents, being there to write the IEP, quite frequently we end up at home doing all those things. And now in a year like this, where things are completely changing and you're adding to the ESE responsibilities, more and more work is gonna begin getting done at home. So we do have to have that standard operating procedure, and that's the reason we watch the caseloads, the numbers, how many ESE students are in a class. We wanna make sure our students are getting everything that they need so that we can continue to be that aid district and continue to provide those amazing services for our students.
Was. So to make sure I understand, you're requesting that we develop some type of SOP request to make sure there is some guidance to follow when assigning caseloads.
So some basics so that, we can see where the numbers are, the same way that we do the basics to see where the class loads are, like you're doing already. It's the same thing, not micromanaging at all, but watching to see how the averages work out. I'm not sure how you all feel about that, but just having those reports there with how's it working in the English classes, how many students of different types are in them. Start working on the systems and have that together so that we can see how it is working from school to school, and maybe that data helps us to see who's doing things different ways, and we can learn from each other and keep all of those systems going.
Is that the only question, or?
Is there anything else that y'all wanna add? I think that was the only start.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh,
You
yes.
did have one thing, sorry.
When you were talking about the personnel files, you had mentioned the fingerprint report and it brought to my mind the email that we received about the requirement now that everybody has to be re-fingerprinted.
Yes.
And so, that process may be something, not necessarily that we need to put in our contract, but maybe we can get an update on how that's gonna work, because that is gonna impact people's time.
Right, it's not gonna impact them, we're not gonna, the cost will not be passed to the employee, we're gonna incur the cost on that.
Right,
It's just, we are trying to figure out how it's a mandate from the state, every
Right.
district has that mandate. And they're not, it's an unfunded mandate, so we're not gonna pass that mandate to the employee. Because the employee will technically already paid for those fingerprints, it's just now they have a change of clearinghouse. Those details, we're trying to finalize those, obviously, we made changes in HR that we have two fingerprint personnel to deal with that on public records, for that matter. So there's gonna be information coming, it's just we're trying to finalize this, the way we're gonna do it.
well, definitely appreciated the heads up for it, but I was just thinking about the fact that we are a large district. And if we are centralizing this process, that is going to mean that employees are going to be driving distances, maybe on their own time. So that's the question,
Yes,
like
yes,
how
correct.
can we facilitate it so it has a less disruption and burden on the employee to get.
Correct, yeah, that's not for the contract, that could be a
Right.
conversation we need to have.
Right, so I just wanted to, for that, for you in your discussion.
Correct.
Think that's it. Think that's it. Caucus.
I didn't write about, no, the fingerprint question. I
Caucus.
didn't get the last part. I didn't get the last part what she said.
Oh, okay. You wanna repeat?
The last part.
Oh, you were asking me to remember something.
Okay, I asked you. I asked you.
Oh, I was just saying that the ability for people to get there, putting the burden on the employee to get to be fingerprinted again. Where is it gonna be? How can we do that to put a less of a burden on the employee?
Well, we're putting less of a burden, but not charging the employer, we're paying actually, and the cost went up to $90. Roughly, right?
Was,
So,
do I remember correctly that you guys talked about you were gonna go to the schools too?
correct, one of the options, we are trying to develop a plan in which we have options in which we can visit schools. Not schools, work sites, because there's employees
Right.
that work.
Sorry.
And there is a schedule, because not every employee needs to be fingerprinted immediately, so we have a span of certain amount of years. I don't wanna say the amount because I don't have the dates in front of me, but to re-fingerprint everyone. And so it's correct, we're gonna have the option for mobile, we're gonna provide an option for employees to, if they have a local UPS store near where they live, they can also go to it. That they can go and just get, whenever they have time one day, do their fingerprints, it's not gonna be like,
Everybody has to come here.
come here, exactly, we're gonna provide options, that I wanna alleviate. But the primary one is the board knows and understands that we're not gonna pass on the cost to the employee.
But I just want to also be clear that we also very sensitive, so just understand the options are based on, there are so many requirements of how we protect that information.
Correct.
So we are even limited on the options we're able to provide because we have to absolutely protect that information. A lot of it is governed by FBI. It's not all in our hands to say, we want to do it like this, because we want to roll out a real easy plan, but
Correct.
we have to make sure it also complies.
Correct, so
with state government requirements.
we're making sure that we meet all those guidelines before we can start. So, I know for sure right now here, it's not an issue, going to local sites, not an issue. And now we're just getting clearance on visiting the sites.
So that being said, we're pushing 1 o'clock now. If we do like an hour lunch. Come back at 2, and then we meet for another hour. Potentially, because we're gonna be done at 3 today, right?
Correct. Do you wanna meet just to come back and reschedule a time? To come back?
Yeah, maybe. Cause I don't know how my team feels if we can really.
work through, at least I don't think it.
Yeah, I don't think so we might need to reschedule.
I'd rather reschedule because I'm gonna have to go over a lot of language
Okay,
this time.
okay, so why don't we just look at dates then, and then we can
Correct.
break for the day?
That's fine, I agree. You have my copy.
Lena, do y'all have this space reserved until 3?
Yes,
So if we stay later, we can do that.
you have to fill out a facility use.
Oh, the shower. Yeah.
A little bit of humor.
No, I appreciate that. I like a good meet for you.
Yes, you can stay.
Okay, so we're doing, I see on the agenda, we have secured the July 22nd date for a budget subcommittee.
Yes, I was informed of that also.
Okay.
Earlier today, so I'm gonna schedule and send you that invitation and for a meeting in the boardroom, okay?
Okay. And then, we have the July 23rd. This is on our side. I have not had a chance to talk with my team about location, so it's fine if we just leave LCA office for now.
Okay.
And I have the July 23rd date. I also have the 9 AM Zoom, so we did confirm that. Is that correct? For the team committee?
Yeah, we have the 8 o'clock in the morning for the team committee for, right, for the 23rd.
We're doing that at 8?
Do 9.
I thought we were doing 9.
9 o'clock.
It's 9, I have it on my calendar, sorry.
Okay.
9,
9 AM for the team committee,
correct,
and then 10:30 for bargaining.
correct, that's what we had, 10:30 to what time?
I think we had talked about trying to go to 3 again.
Okay, that's fine.
So we can block that time and see what happens, I guess. And then unrelated, but I have an insurance committee on here for the 24th. At 3:30. I don't know if that's gonna change since we now had an insurance committee scheduled for
This Thursday,
this Thursday,
I'm not sure if that's.
so he is canceling?
He said it's too late.
No, we're doing one on, we went Thursday.
There might be both, so I guess we gotta get clarification on if there's changes to the insurance committee on the 24th.
The 24th.
And I will reach back out to Scott, Ward and Rob about that meeting as well after I talk to my team. Because I wanna make sure if there are some potential changes happening that's gonna significantly impact our bargaining unit, that our team gets communication about that.
Okay,
So
so for one meeting,
Thursday.
the
The
24th,
10th.
no,
This Thursday.
okay, that's for, yeah, that, I'm not aware of that meeting, I
Okay.
was just informed, so I'm not sure the details on it.
Okay. And then I can find out from them, I guess, if the 24th is still gonna happen. So then for us, for bargaining, I would imagine our next time that we can actually bargain, because the next week is lunch until 8, and we don't really wanna impact that, because we're gonna be helping with new hire,
Correct,
would be August.
okay,
So how does your calendar look?
tell me a date, and I'll tell you, tell me a date, when to. I have. I'm available the 4th. The 5th, the 6th. When do we go back on Fridays?
That week?
That week,
Yeah.
so I'm available the 4th, the 5th, the 6th. I'm available that week so far, the 4th through the 9th day.
How does the group feel about bargaining during pre-planning or the first week of school?
I don't know when, school they're gonna have.
Sorry?
I don't know when the different schools are gonna have their open schools.
Oh, yeah, do you already have dates for your open houses and stuff? Do you know when they are? Like, are they typically that pre-planning or the first week or?
I'm here in school, like, we're having ours Wednesday, but a lot of other schools have those on Thursday.
Most of them Wednesday and Thursday probably.
Do you know of any chance they might be on a Tuesday if we were to?
I would.
Like the 4th Saturday, but Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough week.
Yeah.
But I don't know when it's
For us.
So would it be better maybe the week after school starts?
I would,
Probably,
That would be better than pre-planning.
Okay.
And then when do the high schools do like the nights in the snow?
So, the 11th. Not the 11th, there's a board meeting on the 11th. So it will be the 12th, the 13th, the 14th, or the 15th.
Y'all okay with the first week of school, or you wanna push to the next week? Second week?
Again, when are most of the different school lessons? And so usually have a.
Do y'all know about, cause obviously, sometimes, I know especially for elementary, I'm not sure about high school. There is a, like, meet the teacher during pre-planning, right? But then there's also a parent-teacher night. Are y'all schools?
It's probably not. Typically, that's like.
That's it.
Okay, so that won't impact August. Okay, so we could do it this week.
I'm gonna.
Yes.
Because if you're an elementary school teacher, it's different than a high school.
Right.
I don't know if that's what's
What's happening?
I'm sorry, I'm Tamara Russell from Beverly Shores. DB
See,
school.
school.
Sorry, I can't help myself, it's just Stevens, I'm sorry. I'm gonna say that in terms of elementary school only. Having a meeting that first week of school on the days before we're supposed to have pre-planning and then asking teachers to maybe participate in this process is going to be overwhelmingly stressful because we are all, making our little rooms a home, right, in those days before. So I would ask for elementary, if we could push that to the second week, so that that would be behind us, and now we're already engaged with the children and things like that, just speaking on, in terms of elementary school.
So the week of the 18th.
Tuesday, or actually, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
How about the 20th, 21st? How about the 21st?
The 21st?
Yeah, Thursday, the 21st. 21st.
No, the 21st is not. I'd rather it be either the Friday, the 22nd, or the Wednesday, the 20th.
I think it's gonna have to be the Wednesday. I don't think folks wanna target on a Friday. No.
Yeah,
Or you make decisions you regret later.
So July 20th, Wednesday?
the Wednesday or even
I'm
the,
sorry, August 20th.
or even Tuesday, the 19th, either one of those 2 days.
We can't do Tuesday.
Okay, so then the 20th. Wednesday, the 20th. Obviously, we'll have to be afternoon so people can come to bargaining, so it would be 3, 4 o'clock, what you tell me,
It would have to be at least 4,
or to get me to schedule how many hours?
say till 6.
Okay, 4 to 6.
You do that one, Southwood, we can talk, and that will be.
So, we know,
That's here, that's ours.
would you be willing to adjust in that case? Cause I know we had talked about trying to do some of them at work sites, and then we had said, okay, we'll wait until August, till school starts to hold them at work sites. Is there a way that we could do that at a South Lake school somewhere?
I don't feel comfortable at this time. Probably later when we have more language that we're close to
Okay.
ratification, then I can propose that, but not at this time.
So like later in August or September, if we have another bargain.
When we're closer to ratifying, like we're agreeing on the contract, then that is.
4 to 6.
All these are okay.
Do you wanna set any other date in August, or do we wanna just go with that for now?
Let's go with the 20th.
Okay.
Let's wait to settle, for schools settle their calendars and teachers, and then you and I can talk and discuss other times that we can set. I'll be more than glad to discuss, try to think of other days.
Okay.
And then when we meet on July 23rd, right, that's when we're meeting again,
Yes.
then we can discuss other dates. Or give me,
Did you confirm with Scott if he can be at the July 23rd meeting?
and I have not confirmed that meeting for him.
Okay.
The only meeting he told me about was the
22nd?
22nd. but I can ask them about it.
On the 23rd, it was at 10:30. What was 10:30 to what time?
3.
Three, but where is, that's the
Where?
one that you're gonna give
Yes,
the location?
well, right now, we'll tentatively leave it at our office and I'll let you know, if
Okay.
that change.
All right, and anybody else has a comment? Gwen, so everybody's in agreement to end? Okay, it is now. It is 1:01. This will end LCA and LCS bargaining July 8th for this happy 8th district.
Yeah.
I just want to.